All right, we're live. So, all right. Let me send out a. So, did you go out and do anything last night? Fun, Ben?
Little bit. Went out for dinner with my girlfriend and a few of her friends, and then just came back to her place and chilled and played some games. So, kept it a little adult version of New Year's Eve. How about you guys?
I just hung out with family, man. Then I went out to meet up with some of my friends in the city. So it was pretty chill for us too.
Nice. And Kev, you were breaking down the games, right?
That's it.
That's awesome.
Kev was living the dream.
That's right. I was jealous.
Hey, well, everyone else is out, partying. I'm inside grinding. So,
Grinding and safe.
see if that works.
David Johnson said he was asleep before midnight, so I'm going to go ahead and lock him into this lineup real quick.
You know it.
Oh, don't tell me it's not coming up right. Okay, it's showing up right. Okay. Yeah, did y'all like that new Abby that I got? That Travis Kelce, Anthony's hating on my boys, so.
I mean, that's pretty dope.
So. Yeah, Anthony stays hating, man.
He stays hating because Kelce has been balling out, man.
That's what I'm saying, but hey, some people can't recognize greatness.
Gotta appreciate it when it's there.
But for real, seriously though, we are live, but anyway, but seriously, people, it feels like with Travis Kelce, there's this I don't know why there's just this weird hate for that he's received, and I don't even get it because I guess maybe people overhyped him the last few years, but people forget that he's pretty much produced every year he's been in the league, which is very rare for tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that there was really to hate was his usage being in Casey's offense and his ceiling not being unlocked. But we've seen over the last month and a half that that's exactly what's happened. And so now I don't know what there's not to like about it.
I don't get it either, but a lot of people were down on him, but he's been what I think he, like I said, I think he's had six of the last 7 games of over 100 receiving yards. So the Chiefs finally figured it out to who their best playmaker really was.
Right.
Yeah.
And they need to win today. So at 5,000 on DraftKings, that's a pretty insane price for him.
I mean, I know we'll get into it in a minute, that a little bit later, but yeah, I cannot believe that they have not changed that. Did they mess something up? How does the tight end who's been probably the best in the league, this has been the best in the league this year and has been putting up almost wide receiver 1 numbers the last 3 or 4 weeks, how has his price not gone up at all? He stayed at 5K for most of the year.
Stayed at 5K. I think it was Leviton that said he's convinced that they just messed it up and swore to change it to 6,000, but just accidentally hit the 5 instead. It makes no sense.
Well, no, because they put out the you could start rostering players on Christmas Day. So when you think about it, that game was on Sunday night. So anybody who played in those Sunday night games, usually their prices stay the same in that next week. So he was really getting priced at the Tennessee when he had faced Tennessee the week before. Plus, we hadn't really seen what he would do against Denver. Then blows up against Denver, and then it's well, shit. I mean, guess Kelce's gonna stay at 5K then. So yeah, that's crazy to me.
Well, you would think it still would have went up prior to that game. It should have went up weeks ago. He has been really the best tight end for the last month and a half at least, and I mean, like Jordan Reed is still what Jordan Reed's what, like 1,500 more than he is or something like that on DraftKings?
Oh, wow.
He's like 5,900.
I thought he was I thought he was in the 6,000 range.
Well, he used to be.
No.
He's 5,100 now. But if you go to the wide receivers and look where Kelsey's priced, I mean, you're all the way down to the Pierre Garçons, Crowder, Landry, those types. So, I mean, you can roster essentially a wide receiver 1 for that price when the average salary per player is higher than $5,000. I mean, it's insane. So obviously, so many people are going to have him, which I think creates an interesting spot for some leverage to not play Kelsey in tournaments. But obviously, you're going to want some exposure regardless.
Yeah. So, well, I guess why don't we just go ahead and get into it, because we got about an hour to get through a 16-game slate.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, all right. So, this week is going to be it's basically it's kind of like its own week, right? Where, because I mean, so many things are happening. What teams are actually have something to play for? What teams don't? Who's being rested? I mean, there's been so many different guys already been rolled out. That this week is really going to be kind of insane. And I think in tournaments, I think that in cash, I mean, obviously you're just pounding the teams that have everything to play for and probably avoiding anybody who doesn't. But I think in GPPs is where it gets interesting, is trying to find those players that, because I mean, there's a ton of value this week. I think there's probably 10 to 12 value running backs this week, with so many guys out, and some that are probably like Zeke, who's probably only going to play a series or two. So I think this week's going to be interesting, but let's go ahead and get into it. By the way, our normal host Anthony is not here. Whatever. I guess he's just not that into this podcast, so that's whatever. We don't need him anyway, right?
Yeah, no, we're good.
And then as you may know or may not know, my name is Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyRat13. And then we're joined with, as always, as you can find us on Tuesday, with Ben Cummins, and then at Ryan Williams, who are on the show every single week for the TFA podcast. So Anthony's not here. Normally he tries to keep us away from the DFS, but he's not here. So we do whatever the hell we want.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Exciting times here. Start off 2017 on the right foot.
I know it's gonna be lit, and hopefully one of us takes down a GPP over the next 4 or 5 weeks. That's what I want to happen.
Yes, let's go, fellas.
All right. So the first game on the slate, we got New England versus Miami. I think this game is interesting because there is some motivation on both sides. New England has to win this game to lock up a playoff or lock up that home field advantage. They could still get it with an Oakland loss, but their destiny is in their own hands. They win this game. Miami has a little to play for because with a win and a KC loss, they could move up to the 5 seed, which potentially could be good for them because then you're avoiding Pittsburgh in the first round. You get Houston, and whether it's Tom Savage or Brock Osweiler, you feel pretty damn good about your chances. So I think both teams are going to be relatively motivated. Right now, the implied point total for that game is 27 for New England and 17.5 for Miami, and it's over under a 45. So relatively, it's not as high as some of the other ones, but there's only there's only one game that's over 50 this week for totals. So, what do you guys think about this game? Who would you target from this matchup?
So, like you said, the Patriots have to win to ensure that 1 seed, and they're playing at noon. So they're playing in the early slate, so they can't, watch the Raiders and make any determinations from that. So they're going to have to play. We know Malcolm Mitchell is out. I'm almost positive. So that has me interested in Chris Hogan. I know that's kind of Ryan's boy, so he can talk about him too if he wants. But he's really cheap on DraftKings. I'm not sure about FanDuel. Probably pretty cheap there too. But he's somebody I'm interested in because I think Mitchell being out, Chris Hogan is really the direct beneficiary of that. Obviously, they have Michael Floyd too, and it sounds like he's going to play some, but he's only been on the team a couple weeks. He's not somebody that I'm going to play. So Hogan is the guy I'm interested in there for the Patriots, and I'm really not that interested on the Dolphins side of the ball.
Yeah, man. You know I love Hogan. I considered writing him up this week because this is somewhat of a revenge game for him as he started his career out in Miami. I mean, there's not really the same team there, so to speak, but, you know, players like to get up for teams who they used to play for. So that's always interesting to me as I try and find those narratives. And then, yeah, man, I mean, really, Chris Hogan, he's the favorited option in the offense. He's been, you know, able to put up some numbers. He is I guess inconsistent, if you want to say that, but there's just so many mouths to feed in that offense that I think that's where the fluctuation comes from. But when he's been out there, you know, we've seen him put up a 20-point performance on DK numerous times this week. So I love him this week, especially when you're considering you're going to get him under 4K, and, you know, the chances of him a floor of like 5 catches, 80 yards in the score, I think is pretty reasonable.
I mean, and the thing for me is because I've been getting away from David Johnson too much, and I'm just not doing that this week, even though it's week 17. And Chris Hogan's so cheap, he offers you the ability to get David Johnson in your lineup and still get some of these other guys. And the other thing to note is Edelman's snap count has been going down. I believe it was under 50% last week. You know, I don't know if they're trying to conserve him for the playoffs or whatnot, but he has not been playing as much, which could also help Hogan. So again, that's where I'm at. The running back situation, and the running back situation is tough because, you know, obviously Deion Lewis is getting more run now, so it's kind of a three-way monster. So even though Blunt's been such a TD machine, I'm not really on any of the running backs there. So again, Hogan's the guy I'm looking at.
Yeah, I can't touch that running back situation in New England this week.
Well, I mean, I think there's so much value this week that I don't think that you necessarily need to go there.
Right.
And then so Julian Edelman, his snap share has went down. However, he did play on every single pass that Tom Brady did throw last week. So he's still out there. He's still out there every time they're throwing the ball. He's just not there as much as he normally would be. I wouldn't probably play any New England wide receiver outside of a GPP. I don't feel comfortable with any of them in cash, but I think as a GPP option, and I feel the same way about Tom Brady. I don't feel 100% comfortable that he's going to play this entire game, especially with him being because he has been banged up, and not to mention the fact that he really hasn't been. He's been inconsistent as well the last few weeks. So I don't know if I wouldn't roster Brady. I think there's better options. I think there's better places to go than Brady this week. So I don't know how you guys feel about Brady. If you guys would feel 100% confident in firing him up in GPP or even cash, but for me, he's a straight GPP only play for me.
I mean, I'm really not all that interested in Brady, and I should have qualified it. Yeah, I'm thinking of Hogan in tournaments and GPPs. I'm not really interested in cash because, like Ryan said, he's very hit or miss. You know, he could get you 5 or he could get you 25. He could get you 30. So I'm interested in tournaments. Not really all that interested in Brady. He's losing one of his weapons, Mitchell, for this game. Already doesn't have Gronk. And, yeah, I don't know how much he's going to throw. And I just think there's other better options at quarterback that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think we really haven't touched on it, but on the Miami side of the ball, the only player I'm really interested in is Ajayi. And I know a lot's going to be made about, you know, this is the New England defense and, you know, they're really stout against the run, which they are. But when you look at Ajayi's numbers this year, it's like he's the only player that even gives them remotely a chance to win this game. I'm not going to be trusting Matt Moore here. I mean, the dude, he's put, these 200-yard games that he's been putting up this year, like he's just been so good. He's been so consistent over the year that I want to trust him at least in a GPP. This guy's upside is, and even when you're thinking about it, like when Brady comes out of the game, we could see some other starters getting the rest too. If Miami's able to get up on New England in this matchup, they're not going to leave those guys out there. The only way I think that happens is if Ajayi gets going. So there is some intrigue there for me. Only 5,900. It seems like a lot because of the prices this week, but it's really not when you consider the value that you can get at the wide receivers. And there's so many muddy running back situations out there. I just want the guy who I know is going to get 20, 25 touches on a team that's in a must-win situation. Or not must-win, but they're really trying to win because they don't want to go to Pittsburgh.
And like
they want to lock up that Fitzy.
And obviously, like you're saying, he's active. He was a little banged up, but he's active and ready to go.
Yeah, there's no way I could. I don't want any exposure to anybody from the Miami side of the football. I get it, but I don't think like Miami has a little bit to play for. But I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's enough to run guys out there and get somebody hurt. I mean, because for the playoffs. So I don't know. Like I guess he's an option, especially in a GPP. Somebody who we know, he's thrown up 3 200-yard performances this year. So he could very easily blow up. But New England has been amazing against the run, especially as of late. So I don't know. I just don't feel fantastic about playing him. I just think there's other options out there to exploit. So unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about, we can move on to the next game.
No, I'm good with that.
All right. So the next one is Jaguars versus Colts. This one has zero, no playoff implications. No, I mean there's really no motivation outside of pride in this one. I was actually surprised. I don't know. Because I'm sure just like everybody else who plays DFS, as soon as Monday or Tuesday comes around, that's when I start looking at the lines and to see kind of where everything stands. And I was really surprised to see the Colts were favored by 6 points in this matchup. I didn't understand that because the Colts really haven't been that good this year. So, I mean, the Jaguars, of course, I think have looked a little bit better lately, and their defense has actually been pretty damn good. So I was surprised to see the Colts open up as 6-point favorites. Because the Colts have been, the Jaguars. I mean, over the last 6 weeks, Jacksonville ranks 24th in pass yards allowed, and then ranked 28th in rushing yards allowed. So I mean, they've been pretty stout. So I don't feel as good on the Indy side of the football. Indianapolis is going to be without Dante Moncrief today, and the Jaguars, Alan Hearns again will miss this week, and then. I believe have anybody seen if Chris Ivory's playing today? Because I know he was questionable, but they got in limited practices.
I'm not.
Yeah, I think Chris Ivory is going to be out today. I think I saw something that's going to be out. So they do have like 4 other running backs, including Denard Robinson, and then a bunch of guys who I had no idea who they were. So.
Wow, that's interesting because I thought it sounded like he was going to play. So, yeah. So they really have no running game.
Well, then that makes me want to fire up Allen Robinson. Do you guys think he repeats that performance, even though he's probably going to be matched up against Vontae Davis?
I mean, I definitely think he could. Vontae Davis has struggled this year. He's been solid in the past, but he's been, pretty banged up this year. Hasn't been as good. And you just look at it. There's no Julius Thomas. There's no Alan Hearns. They don't have a running game. They got it going a little bit last week. Granted, it was against Tennessee, who's awful, but the Colts are a good matchup as well. And where else are the targets going to go? Marquise Lee was questionable. It sounded like he was going to play. I'm guessing that's the case. And Marquise Lee's been playing good too. But it's really those two. And, we love highly concentrated offenses, especially passing offenses in fantasy football. And, we just know where the targets are going to go. I would guess that Robinson sees double-digit targets, and he's still a really nice price on DraftKings as well in the 5,000 range, if I'm not mistaken. So he's definitely someone that I've been looking at for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I just wasn't like last week. I was more from the notion that I need to see Allen Robinson prove it before, I mean, it's week 16, but I was only playing him on one lineup this week or last week. I didn't want to miss out. But I mean, it was something to see just how Bortles was able to just target him, all over the field. And Vontae really isn't somebody who I'm going to shy away from. Receivers have been able to, number one receivers on opposing teams as of late have been able to get there. So this is a whatever game, I think, for Jacksonville. I think they're going to go out there and just, like you said, play for pride. Allen Robinson's going to be one of those guys who's out there playing for his pride, as well as Bortles. And with the Colts not having to play for anything either, I think they just want to, win against a divisional opponent. So yeah, he's definitely intriguing. And then if Marquise Lee plays too, he's intriguing for me as well, because we've seen him get the targets too.
So I'm not sure who this is specifically, but Blue Check Mark on Twitter said, keep an eye on Marquise Lee. Hip flexor still hurting, but he'll give it a go. So it doesn't sound like he's going to be 100%. So I just think that helps Robinson a little bit more.
Yeah, true. I mean, when you're looking at it, Blake Bortles is never in a situation where this guy has to pass for less than 30 times a game. But he's gonna pass 70% of the time, I think, in this game. Like I just don't see there, unless Denard Robinson is able to get it going early. So with that given said, Robinson might just be in a place where you just can't overlook the volume that he'll be seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I was heavy on Allen Robinson last week. I had him all over the place. And I did have some exposure to Blake Bortles, really liked him, but Blake Bortles was the money last week. This week, I love the matchup again. Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson, I have that stack all over the place. I think it's another great spot for them, especially now with Allen Robinson. With, like I said, who the hell else are they going to throw the ball to? I mean, now with Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns, Lee's going to play, but I don't feel confident in that. Then that's Aurelius Ben and Brian Walters. Past that, that doesn't do anything for me. We could realistically see Allen Robinson 12 to 15 targets, depending on how this game goes. So I really like that. I think Allen Robinson is one of the best plays on the board, especially at 5,600. And then at running back, Denard Robinson in the past has produced. So he's also a guy, especially in on DraftKings with being a PPR, where I think he really makes some sense for someone to target. On the opposite side of the football for Indy, I'm probably not targeting anybody there. I think Jacksonville's defense has been highly underrated, and I don't really understand why. I think it's because they see the record and it's the Jaguars, so people just assume things with the Jags. But the Jaguars' defense is certainly up and coming. I think that there's no way I would play any Frank Gore at all. Like, I want no part of that against that defense. That's been very good, been rock solid against the run. And then with Dante Moncrief out, I know a lot of people will be going towards T.Y. Hilton. But for me, I don't want any part of that. Jalen Ramsey has been a beast the last of the season. And with that being the only option that's going to really hurt him, I think he shadows T.Y. Hilton. And so I want nothing to do with T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, I do think there's a decent chance this is Frank Gore's last game, so there could be some narrative street there, but not. I can't even bring myself to do that. And I am also not really interested in T.Y. Hilton because, like you said, the Ramsey factor. People like him. He's probably going to see the targets with Moncrief out, but I just don't like the matchup. So I'm really not interested in anybody on the Colts that much either.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, at least on DraftKings, for me, it's just too expensive when you're considering that, you pay up $400 more to get Mike Evans, Nelson, or pay down $400 to get Doug Baldwin. I just can't.
Yes.
I just can't do it. All those guys are in way more favorable matchups than T.Y. Hilton is. So yeah. Yeah, it sucks. From just going back to Jacksonville, it sucks because Indy's been a team that I've targeted a lot with the running back. So if Ivory was playing, I think he would be like in a premier spot because they give up like 20-something fantasy points to running backs. But yeah, I just can't trust Denard Robinson. So maybe if on DraftKings you have that flex position. So if you're getting down and you like your team, you have to throw somebody in that flex. Maybe you could take a shot on him in a GPP, but other than that, there's really not much else to like in this game.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I guess let's go ahead, unless you guys have something else, to move on to the next one.
Let's move on.
All right, so the next one we got is Carolina versus Tampa Bay. Again, not a whole lot of playoff implications. There is the scenario where Tampa Bay could make it into the playoffs, but it's pretty slim chance. However, I think that you'll probably see them come out and really, really give it their all because they play at noon. They're going to have no idea what else could happen because they are going to need, I believe, a tie from the Redskins and Giants game. So I don't know. There's pretty much no shot for them, but I do think they will come out and, I think they're going to be motivated. So for the implied point totals for this matchup, it's 26.3 for Tampa Bay and 17.3 for Carolina. The last I saw, I haven't seen anything more on Jonathan Stewart. Is he going to play? He was listed as questionable, even though he did get in a full practice on Friday. But I didn't see anything else as an update if he's going to play or not. I don't know if you guys can. I didn't see anything on him.
Yeah, I haven't seen the update come through either.
I'm trying to check it out. Yeah, because that'd be interesting because if he's out, then Cameron Artis-Payne.
Okay.
It says Stewart is active.
Active, yeah. I saw that. Charlotte Observer.
Okay.
So then, so he's in, and then on the Buccaneers side of the football, obviously we know Doug Martin, who's a big dummy, and now could easily they're talking about could get cut at the end of the season because they could actually save the $7 million guaranteed by cutting him now that he's suspended for PEDs. And then Charles Sims is also out, back to the IR for him, short-lived return. And then obviously Cameron Brate got placed on the IR, which is a big blow because he's somebody that I've really utilized this year. Always been a cheap alternative for a cheaper tight end. But in this matchup, I think the guys to talk about, for me at least, are on the Tampa Bay side of the football because I'm not really interested in anybody on Carolina. I want no exposure to Cam Newton. He's been terrible this year for the most part. So for me, all the exposure I want is on Tampa Bay side of the football. What do you guys feel about Mike Evans? I know there's a lot of feeling around with so many people going to some of the other guys to have far more to play for, but maybe Mike Evans is going to get lost in the shuffle. How do you guys feel about him?
I like him a lot. I mean, it just depends on if you're going to pay up for his price, but I like him a lot because like you said, with Cameron Brate out, I mean, before Brate got injured and was out, it was literally just Evans and Brate. And so now that Brate's gone, I would be shocked if Evans didn't see double-digit targets in this game. Like you said, even though it's a long outside chance, the Bucs do have a chance of making the playoffs. So I do think they come and play pretty hungry. And it's just a great matchup for Evans. The Panthers have given up the most passing yards in the league. And I like him a good amount because where else are they going to throw the football?
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at their depth chart, they have Adam Humphries, Freddie Martino, Russell Shepard, and Josh Huff.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Humphreys has gotten it done every once in a while, but it's pretty much just a bunch of nobodies and then one of the best wide receivers in the game. So, like I said, I'd be shocked if he doesn't see double-digit targets in this game.
Exactly. You gotta play Mike Evans. I think it's really he's just the nuts play at the wide receiver position. He's what's interesting is, for me, I talked about this on the Tuesday show, was he really has been killing it against the division. Like, he's put up 20 points on DK or more against every divisional opponent besides the Week 14 game that they had in New Orleans, where everybody expected that to be a bonanza, and it only ended up being like 16 to 11 or 12, whatever that score ended up being. He has struggled in his career against Carolina, but that's more so when Josh Norman was there, and he was able to get loose against these guys for, a handful of catches and a touchdown the last time he faced them this year. So Evans is just in a premier spot. I think that, Jameis is going to be able to find this dude open, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this guy get 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carolina's just, allowing the most points to receivers this year in fantasy. They've just been terrible on defense. And with the running back situation being as it is, the only other guy I would probably target would be Jacquizz Rodgers. So I think those 2 players are the players that you're looking for in this game.
And look, we're focusing a lot, rightfully so, on what teams are motivated. But we also want to look at what teams have no motivation. And I think the Panthers are really at the top of that list. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They have nothing to play for in this game. It sounded like Stewart might not play. He's going to be active. I'm not sure what the status of Greg Olsen, Cam Newton are, but they were kind of up in the air. I just don't think the Panthers care about this game at all. I could see them just mailing it in, and that could help Evans as well as Jacquizz Rodgers. I like both of those guys. I'm definitely playing Jacquizz just because we know the volume is there with Charles Sims and Doug Martin out. And the matchup's great because, again, I don't think the Panthers defense really cares, and I'm almost positive Luke Kuechly's not playing. So I think it's a great matchup for Jacquizz. And the Bucs defense is interesting just from the standpoint, again, I have no idea if the Panthers offense is even going to try that hard in this game at all. So those are the 3 interesting spots.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I want no exposure whatsoever to the Carolina side of the football. Like I said, Cam Newton has been inaccurate this year. But it's kind of funny when we talk about Cam Newton, because last year had the performance that he put up last year was well above what he's done throughout the rest of his career. But this year, his numbers are right on point what he's been throughout the rest of his career. So I don't know if it's starting to look more like last year was more of an outlier than it was. And I think this is the Cam Newton that we really should expect, that he's not this elite level talent at the quarterback position. He's a guy that's, I don't know if he's somebody that I would ever consider in the elite tier of quarterbacks. And if he ever loses the ability to run, I think that's really going to hurt him even more, because he hasn't really proven that he can be a consistent contributor. Because last year, like I said, last year, if you look at his numbers past last season, they look exactly the same as this year. He's throwing about right around the 18 to 20 touchdowns, right around 3,200 yards. And that's kind of where he's been. And he usually gets you, 4 to 5 rushing touchdowns. So I don't know. But as for this week, I want nothing to do with any of them. I think all of them, outside of maybe a Ted Ginn, because he's that boom or bust dart throw. But that's about all I would want on that side. So, and I totally agree with the Mike Evans and the Jacquizz Rodgers. So, anyway, that's all I got on this one. If you guys want to move on to the next game.
Yeah,
let's do it.
All right. The next one is Chicago versus Minnesota. Another game with no implications on the playoffs. This one, so it has the applied point total for Chicago, 18.3, and for the Vikings, 23.3. I think this is a very interesting game, one that most people won't be on, but I think one that could provide some really good fantasy goodness here. Jordan Howard has been better than advertised so far this season. I think a lot of people aren't going to be on this game, like I mentioned. So who from this are you guys targeting? Maybe like a Matt Barkley or a Cameron Meredith, especially after what happened last week, the debacle with Minnesota, with their corners apparently going rogue and doing whatever the hell they want to do. Just sort of like a lot of turmoil around there, nothing for them to play for whatsoever. Are you targeting any of the Bears?
So Cameron Meredith has seen 25 targets over the last 2 weeks, and that's really, really nice. That's something that definitely interests me. That's a lot of targets, and he supposedly has the best matchup this week of all the receivers. He should see a lot of, I believe, Captain Munnerlyn in the slot, whereas I think Alshon's going to see the majority of Xavier Rhodes. So I am interested. I mean, it's not as good of an overall passing matchup for Meredith than he had last week against Washington, because Minnesota's been, generally over the course of the entire season better against the pass, and I believe the Bears are on the road this week. So I'm not as excited, but he's definitely in play. It's really Thielen on the other side of the ball that I'm really interested in, with Stephon Diggs looking like he's not going to play. I'm not sure if he was officially ruled out, but it sounded like he was going to miss. And we all know what he did last week, Thielen. So that's those are the two receivers that are in play for me in this game. But I think I'm leaning Thielen a little bit more than Meredith. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, real quick, Diggs is out this week along with Adrian Peterson. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Bears defense, so anybody who's running routes against these guys on the other side is going to be in a good spot. It's about opportunity, right? I mean, when you're thinking about it, with him being, the lone option out there, I mean, you could write up Kyle Rudolph too, but at the tight end position, I think there's other places to go. So a 5,600 price tag, it's either going to come down to two things. One, you're either going to play him because this dude has the 40-point upside now, and you want a piece of that against the Chicago team with them playing at home. Or two, you're going to fade him because at 5,600, that is a little bit pricey if you want to try and get some other high-end guys into your lineup. So I like him. I think that Howard is the safest bet in this game. I do like Matt Barkley too, actually. This guy's been throwing 40 times a game. We've already seen him, get over 20 DK points once this season. He got almost 19 last week, and that was throwing 5 interceptions as well. And then when you're talking about the quarterback position on DK, I think it's a perfect week to pay down this week on quarterback and just get the high-end studs at running back and wide receiver onto your team, especially if if you're able to get 20 points out of Matt Barkley at his 5,100 price tag. That's 4x return on the value there. So have much to lose, considering that they're really just trying to audition Matt Barkley, so to speak, to see if this guy even has any promise to be on their roster for next year as backup or starter, depending on what they do in the draft. So I like him. You're not spending that much to get him.
Yeah, I totally agree. The guys that I really like the most in this matchup for me is definitely Jordan Howard. The guy's been a monster. I think he has 600-yard rushing games this year. And then from there, I really like Cam Meredith, like you guys mentioned. And then I think Alshon Jeffrey is interesting. But I think where I felt that I found that so far I've had the most exposure to, and that's Adam Thielen. He's been quietly going about his business this year. PPR formats, he's been a middle-of-the-road wide receiver 2 on just 88 targets. So he's 2.21 fantasy points per target, which is the highest of any wide receiver, from wide receiver 1 down to wide receiver 3 of the top 36 wide receivers. So I really like Thielen. I think he's going to see a ton of targets. I don't know how you guys feel about Kyle Rudolph. I think he's worth a look, especially as a cheaper option on tight end, because I think a lot of people are going to be on Kelsey and probably some on Zach Ertz, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think he's at least worth a look in that matchup and in this matchup. And I think that especially with the target share he's going to get. So for me, I'm going to have a ton of exposure to Adam Thielen because I think he sees easily double-digit targets. And even Sam Bradford, call me crazy, but I think he's had, over 290 yards in each of his last 3 games. And so I don't know, as a really dart throw, min price quarterback, so you could do much worse than Sam Bradford.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Kyle Rudolph because he's definitely in play. He's been seeing a good amount of targets all year, and Diggs being out, I think, helps him as well. But yeah, I'm also very interested in Thielen. I'm excited about him the most in this game.
Yeah, right. Rudolph to me is he just doesn't. He's not doing it for me this week. There are much better tight ends that I think I would go. He hasn't had a multiple touchdown score this game. I mean, I guess if you're going to project him for a couple catches there with Diggs being out, that could boost his upside a little bit. But the guys surrounding him, I think, are in much better spots.
All right. Well, so I think we've pretty much covered that matchup.
Yeah.
And we still have a ton to cover, and it's only 30 minutes to lock. So we should probably. So the next one is Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. I don't think there's a ton to talk about here. Pittsburgh is resting their starters. No Le'Veon Bell, no Antonio Brown, no Big Ben. Nothing for them to play for. They can't hurt themselves whatsoever. They're going to be starting Landry Jones. I think Landry Jones, I wouldn't play him, but I'm sure some people will. And then on the opposite side of the football, Cleveland, if Cody Kessler was playing, I would feel much better about Terrell Pryor because Terrell Pryor's price has dropped significantly. I think he's like 5,200, I think, something like that on DraftKings. And with Cody Kessler, he's got 63% of his targets from Cody Kessler as opposed to 48% from Robert RG3. So if that was the case, then but I have seen that maybe that Cody Kessler is going to see some action in this game along with RG3. So I think that'll be interesting. But this isn't really a game that I'll probably be targeting a whole lot. I know some people are going to be on Eli Rogers there. And then, what would you guys do with the D'Angelo Williams, Fitzgerald Toussaint situation?
Look, this is a 16-game slate, right? You're going to have to cross some games off your list or cross some teams off your list. This is a game I'm really not looking at all. Eli Rogers is interesting. The report came out that they're probably going to feature him, but I'm just not interested. He's catching passes from Landry Jones, who's not good. And we just don't know. I mean, he could be featured in the first half, and then all of a sudden it could be Kobe Hamilton, Darius Hayward-Bay getting the targets because, again, the Steelers just don't care. And I'm really not interested in D'Angelo Williams at all. I know other people are, but he had the knee issue. He's been out for a long time. He returned last week and either got one snap or one touch. So he hasn't done much. And just to me, I mean, if I was running this team, if Le'Veon Bell gets hurt in the first round of the playoffs, they can still win a Super Bowl with D'Angelo Williams. So I have no idea why you would run this dude out there in Week 17 and risk him getting hurt either. And I know they've talked about giving him a tune-up, but I don't think D'Angelo Williams needs a tune-up, especially at his age. So I think we're going to see a lot of Toussaint in this game, probably more than Williams. That's just what I think. And so I'm just not going to touch this running back situation either because there's other situations like we talked about with Jacquizz Rodgers, where we know, that volume is guaranteed. And I want to go that route, especially in cash games, but even in GPPs for the most part too. So that's where I'm at.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting when you figure out that, or when you factor in D'Angelo Williams last year when Le'Veon Bell was out, he was just a freaking monster in those games. Putting up 20 fantasy points when this guy was out, pretty much on the regular. I mean, we saw him be a running back one in this situation. The only thing, I mean, with Landry Jones being there, Cleveland. So, I mean, there's going to be points scored in this game. I think that D'Angelo could easily get loose in this game. If you're trying to talk me into one, I like Tucson a little bit better just because you save on the price tag there. Looks like DK was able to get this pricing right because both of those guys are priced up higher than they would be in any other matchup, with D'Angelo being 5,500 and Fitzgerald Tucson being 43. But we've attacked Cleveland all year, so I'm not going to let week 17 talk me off of that reasoning. They just can't defend the run at all, and these are two running backs who have done it in this league. And they might want to get D'Angelo ready for the playoffs. This guy hasn't been really able to take snaps since Le'Veon's been back. It's been the Le'Veon Bell show, and we know where D'Angelo could be. He was on Twitter last week talking smack about how Cleveland got their first win of the season. It's a Christmas miracle. So he's probably been thinking about getting out there and playing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm with Ben. There's really nothing that really intrigues me on this game with this game. I think like people have forgotten that Landry Jones is terrible. Like he is legitimately terrible. And I guess they're playing Cleveland, but I don't care. Like Landry Jones shouldn't be an NFL quarterback whatsoever. We've seen it far too many times. Just because they're playing Cleveland doesn't do anything for me. I want nothing to do with that side of the football. Maybe Eli Rogers, I see that, or maybe even a Darius Hayward-Bay or Kobe Hamilton if you're really desperate, trying to get really contrarian. But I want nothing to do with it. On the Cleveland side of the football, like I said, Terrell Pryor maybe is interesting, or even Isaiah Crowell would be pretty interesting. But with nothing to play for Pittsburgh, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think there's any sort of motivation there for them. So I really want nothing to do with this matchup. I just think there's much better games to target. And then as for the next one, I don't know if there's a whole lot we really need to talk about with this matchup, but Buffalo versus New York. New York, like Buffalo starting EJ Manuel, like to me, I don't get it. I guess I know they're trying to save money with Tyrod Taylor because if Tyrod Taylor gets hurt, they would have to own like $27 million. But I don't know, like EJ Manuel, and now they're saying they're wanting to see what EJ Manuel can do. Like, come on, really? EJ Manuel is terrible, and another guy who should not be in the league. So I don't know. Like, maybe I think LaShawn McCoy is worth a look, especially in GPPs. But Buffalo has nothing to play for. I could see them resting LaShawn McCoy some and giving the ball more to Mike Gillislee. On the Jets side of the football, it's back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick's awful. Brandon Marshall, I believe I saw, is out and is inactive, and so is Robbie Anderson.
No, Robbie Anderson's active.
Okay, I thought I saw. Okay, that was a game time decision for him. Okay, so he's going to be active.
He was questionable, I think, all week, but it says he's active. And Bilal Powell is also active, which is interesting because he had the sickness, and we weren't sure if he was going to play. Now that we know he's going to play, he's interesting because Forte's out, so we know Powell's going to get a lot of work. So he could definitely be a GPP option. But yeah, like you're saying, I'm not interested much in this game.
Yeah, I'm not. I love Bilal Powell. Like, Bilal Powell's been a beast the last couple of weeks, and I hope next year the Jets hold on to Bilal Powell and move on from Matt Forte, I believe, and just feature Bilal Powell because I think he's proven that he can do it. And maybe draft a guy in the third or fourth round or something like that. But however, like I said, I'm not really interested in this. I think Sammy Watkins, Charles Clay, maybe, but with DJ Manuel, like I said, I really don't want much to do with it. I just think there's better avenues to go down. So unless you guys have something else you guys want to talk about with this matchup, we can move on.
No, yeah, I'm off that.
I'm good. I mean, I could see McCoy if they gave him the work, but I don't want to risk it because, like you said, they got nothing to play for. So I'm good.
All right. So the next matchup so this is, I don't know, like I've gotten so tired of hearing about this, but let's go ahead and talk about it. The Baltimore, Cincinnati. Of course, this is supposed to be Steve Smith's last game all week, especially in the DFS community. It's been the Steve Smith narrative, the retirement narrative, that they're just going to feed him the football. People saying like to pad his stats. I don't get it. It's one game. Like, is something going to matter between this? Like, I don't think this one game is going to matter a whole lot in his Hall of Fame chances at the Hall of Fame. I think he is a Hall of Famer, but like, I don't get the whole we're just going to feed him just because he's retiring narrative. So for me, because I think everybody's going to be on him, especially in GPPs. Yes, he's 4,900. Yes, he's probably going to see a decent amount of volume, but I just don't like in GPPs. This feels like a classic where you should be moving away from it because it seems like everybody and their mother is going to be on Steve Smith, and that's not where I ever want to be in a GPP. I want to be somewhere else where I feel like I'm getting, where I'm really I'd rather be contrarian here and avoid Steve Smith. I know you guys don't agree with that probably, but that's where I'm at with Steve Smith.
I mean, it's your thought process is solid is what I'm trying to say, because yeah, I'm definitely thinking his own percent is going to get up there, but I mean, I'm just on this narrative street. The Ravens have nothing to play for. This is Steve Smith, who's just been one of the best receivers ever. We've heard this talk all week, but I think it could be similar to the Kobe game. Like, they have nothing else to play for, and I just think that they're going to funnel this dude targets. I'd be shocked if he didn't see double-digit targets. Now, the matchup isn't great, so that's another reason why you don't want to have 100% exposure, because there are a lot of interesting options. If he sees a lot of Adam Pac-Man Jones, he's been pretty solid this year, but I'm just on this narrative street. They're going to try to feed him the ball. What are you thinking, Ryan?
Dude, I can't believe it. You took the words like straight out of my mouth with the Kobe game. A lot was made in that last game that Kobe played, whether it was because he had just been terrible all year, terrible in his last season. But there's something to be said when great players, go out for one last time to play. And we obviously saw in that Kobe game, he ended up putting up like K points or something like that in that game that he played in. And like, it wouldn't surprise me if Steve Smith, got like 30 DK points today. You can say whatever you want, but this dude is a great receiver. And with him, trying to go out there and, put it all on the line, so to speak, with him, this being his last game. I mean, he was choked up in the media session. He was really having a hard time, getting words out. I think that they'll feed him. I really do. And he's been able to put up some decent numbers this year, and it being his last year. If with Pac-Man Jones being on him, like, I really hope that he's defending him, because if he gets riled up at all in this game, like, it could be ugly. Like, he really is a great receiver. He's been getting targets in the offense. He's seen, in his past 4 games, he just had a 22 DK performance last week, getting a touchdown. I just don't see how this guy gets any less than 20 DK points today. And at 4,900, like, why not roster him? And, I think a lot of what we see, is people in the industry who are talking up Steve Smith. So from a Shark standpoint, I think his ownership will be high. But in the general overall scheme of things, like, if you're playing week 17, like, I think people are just looking at it. Baltimore's on the road. They have nothing to play for. I don't think a lot of people are even thinking about, what we're talking about there. So whatever you think his own percentage will be, I think it will be lower than that in the grand scheme of things.
No, but look, that's pretty much exactly where I'm at. I think, he gets around 20 points, and at $4,900, I mean, if his salary was higher, I could see it, but I just think it's such a solid play at 4,900. Shout out to Michael Stepney on Twitter. He said, if you want to pivot off Smith, you can go with Brandon LaFell. Obviously Ravens pass D is terrible. Don't have Jimmy Smith. They're not playing for anything. And LaFell's been pretty solid without A.J. Green, and he's pretty cheap too. So that's another option in this game. He's not really somebody that I'm considering. I'm really only looking at Steve Smith in this game. And then on the other side of the ball, we know Jeremy Hill's out. I am interested in Rex Burkhead. I do like him. He had 16 touches last week. He is a capable pass catcher. He caught 4 balls last week, especially in DK with the full point PPR at $3,500. I really like this dude. I mean, I think he's definitely the chalk cheap option at running back, but we also, had the ability of Jeremy Hill not being officially ruled out until this morning, which usually tends to affect own percentages because people are making lineups earlier in the week and they just don't know on Jeremy Hill, so they just avoid that situation altogether. So I do think even though Burkhead's kind of the chalk cheap option, I seriously doubt he's a super high owned in GPPs. And so if you're trying to go cheap at running back, I like Rex Burkhead this week, especially, again, because the Ravens D really has nothing to play for other than, the offense with Steve Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this game sneakily, when you think about it, like, let's actually think about it. It could be an interesting game stack. Like, this is one of the few games on the week where I actually could see myself targeting all here, because Andy Dalton's 5,100, like, that's just way too cheap. I mean, I don't care what his options are. This dude's going to throw the ball 30 times minimum. And at 5,100, like, the same at Mark Barkley at home, like, he still has Brandon LaFell there. We saw what he's able to do with him. Like, I mean, give me a break. This dude could still hit 20 DK points, no problem. LaFell's 4,500. And then if you take Steve Smith, like, you're still under 16K of your salary, of that 50,000 salary. Just plug those guys in. I mean, it's the cheapest game stack that you can potentially get out of any game. And if those guys hit and you hit on your high end guys, like, that could be it right there. So that's interesting to me.
What say you, Kev?
Like I said, I'm not. I'll have some exposure to Steve Smith. It's just not going to be as much as what everybody else is going to be with just jamming him in the lineup. I feel like this is a great way to leverage off that. And I do like Brandon LaFell. Andy Dalton, I'm surprised he is as cheap as he is. It's going to be interesting because you have Tyler Boyd, Brandon LaFell, and then Core, who they've been trying to work in and get some, to check him out as well. So they don't have anybody else to throw the ball to, but I think Brandon LaFell is an excellent option there, especially in GPPs. He's actually cheap. I think he's 4,500 cheaper. So he's about $400 or $500 cheaper, I know, than Steve Smith. I would rather go there because, like I said, I think that everybody and their mother is going to be on Steve Smith, especially because there is a lot of people that do listen to these podcasts, listen to these things, and they start jamming these guys in there because that's all I've heard from every podcast, every write-up, everything is jam Steve Smith in there for the narrative of that he's retiring. I get it. It's awesome. Okay. But there's just other options that I would rather have, especially knowing that he is probably going to see, I would say his ownership is probably like in the milli is probably going to be around 30%. I would think at least.
What percent?
I think around 30%.
That's
at least.
I was thinking about 30% too,
and which is pretty damn high in the Millionaire Maker to have a guy that, especially on a 16-game slate.
Wow, yeah, good point. And again, that's why I said your thought process is solid for sure of not having some Steve Smith. And like I said, I definitely don't think you should go 100% because of everything you said. But I'm still right in narrative street for the most part. Are we good with that game?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so really, I think the meat and potatoes of the rest of this is really going to come in these 3 o'clock games. But is there anything on these afternoon slates that we really want to talk about that we want to mention? Because I think the really where everybody's going to be building around is going to be these 3 o'clock games.
You're talking about the rest of the 1 o'clock games?
Yeah.
Which ones have we not touched on?
We didn't touch Dallas and Philly.
I do think we should mention that real quick, just because, like I was talking about earlier with the Panthers, again, we want to focus on the teams that don't have any motivation. Dallas has no motivation at all. They're not going to play their starters much at all. Sean Lee's going to come off the field really quickly, because why wouldn't he? And so I am interested in Zach Ertz for the Eagles, just because of the fact that Dallas has been bad against tight ends this year. I think it's going to be even a better matchup with some of their starters coming off the field, and Jordan Matthews is out. The last time Jordan Matthews was out, Ertz saw 15 targets. Now, again, that was, a crazy game flow game. I think that was against the Bengals where they were losing early. So you have to take that into consideration. But it's just another one of those situations where are they going to throw the ball? And so you look at on DraftKings, you got Kelsey at 5 Gs, you got Ertz at 4,800. So obviously most people are going to go Kelsey. And so just in tournaments, switching to Ertz is not a bad idea, in my opinion. I've done that on at least one lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy I would say you could target is Dorial Green-Beckham at 3,200. I mean, we've seen it with Matthews out, how this guy gets targeted from Carson Wentz. I think he just feels comfortable, able to, find this guy being open a lot. So that would be one of the guys I would target on Philly. I guess in Darren Sproles too. I do like Darren Sproles this week at 4,000. Being the one running back option there that I trust. I mean, they have a guy who they signed up the practice squad, Teron Ward, and then Byron Marshall, who hasn't proven anything. So
I was really high
just because.
Yeah, I was really high on Sproles the other day. It does sound like there's been multiple reports that they are going to play Byron Marshall a good amount. So I went from thinking, Sproles was going to see all this volume to I actually think there's going to be a timeshare, so I'm not as interested. But I love that you brought up DGB, because that just screams the classic Week 17 wide receiver, hasn't done much all year, that just has a big game, especially with Matthews out. So that is interesting.
Yeah.
I guess, trying to jump through things, there is one more that I wanted to talk about as well, and I guess that's Washington, because they certainly have something to play for. We did miss that one.
Yeah.
So Washington versus the Giants. There you go.
Well, that is a 3:00, 4:00 game. So, but yeah, I love the spot for Washington. You can start it off, Kevin.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right. Anyway, okay. So to start this one, this is going to be very interesting, because Washington, obviously they win. All they have to basically they win, and then the loser of the Green Bay and Detroit game tonight is eliminated from the playoffs unless Green Bay and Detroit tie. That's the only way really Washington can't get in, as long as they secure a W over New York. New York, they've come out, like Rashard Jennings come out and said that they are planning on playing this like a normal game. I think that would be insanely stupid, because there's nothing New York has to play for. And why would you risk getting Eli or OBJ or Sterling Shepard or Landon Collins on the defensive side of the ball, or DRC, or whoever the case may be? Why would you risk that? Like, that makes no sense. Like, they should be trotting out all their backups. They should be doing exactly what Pittsburgh's doing, because I just don't think they really have anything to play for. Washington, on the other hand, does. We've seen Kirk Cousins this year, especially at 6,500 on DraftKings, is really one of my favorite targets this week. I wouldn't even be mad at you if I think actually running Kirk Cousins naked is actually kind of where is the spot to go, because I think it's hard to predict. Deshaun Jackson is if I was going to stack anybody with Kirk Cousins, it probably would be Deshaun Jackson. But I think Deshaun Jackson is also very volatile, because he's very boom or bust. So I really like Kirk Cousins, and I really a lot. And then I do know, after checking out Ben, your article on the fantasy footballers that you have wrote up on Rob Kelly, I know you like him as well.
Yeah, but I did not include Cousins in that article, and that was a huge mistake because that's really kind of where I've gone. You brought up a lot of the points. I mean, the Giants have nothing to play for, so I know they've talked about playing the starters. I have no doubt in my mind that's false. That's just not going to happen. Eli's going to take the first snap of the game, keep his consecutive start streak alive. He'll be out quickly after that. So will Odell Beckham. If that's not the case, they're literally insane, like you said. So I think on the defensive side of the ball, the same thing is going to happen. So Washington has to win. Cousins is going to be throwing it a lot. The matchup is going to be phenomenal because they're going to be playing against backups. And you have another narrative street where Cousins needs 370 yards to reach 5,000. And not that many quarterbacks have ever done that. Now, okay, that's a lot, so might not happen. But I definitely think it's in play. And that's where I'm at. Like you said, Deshaun Jackson is my favorite stack with Cousins because he's gone over 100 receiving yards in 3 straight games, has really looked great the last 3 weeks. I think it continues with Reed playing, but not at 100%. The thing about Rob Kelly, I liked him a lot earlier in the week. He's banged up, though. I do think he's going to play. I don't think we have the news yet since it's a late game, so keep that in mind. But if he does play, I still like him. But just because of the injury concern, and just, looking at it, this has been Cousins' offense for the most part all year. That's really where I've gravitated to now. And I'm totally on board with the naked stack. I've kind of played around with that too, but I also don't think it's insane to go Cousins, Djax, Garcon as well, just because I really do see Cousins has really became my second favorite quarterback this week behind Rodgers, and we know that Rodgers is going to be super high owned, kind of like we talked about with Steve Smith. So I'm really interested in Cousins in the Millie Maker. That's where my main team went.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit it. Cousins is definitely gonna be one of those players who just makes or break you. I mean, if you go, I think the only way I could play Cousins is just try and go all in. So take him with like 2 pass catchers, because I think everybody will just try and take one to get exposure to other games. So I'd probably go like Cousins and Deshaun and Garcon, because Garcon's been the biggest beneficiary, I think, when Reed has been banged up. And I just, I mean, if Reed plays and he does well, I mean, kudos to you if you draft him. I just can't touch him. But yeah, I think if I'm gonna play Cousins, I would go pretty much all in and just try and get the pass catchers that I have right. Because if you're saying like Ben, if he hits like that 370 yards and he gets like multiple scores, if those don't go to like one guy, you're probably gonna need players, right, in order to have that maximum hit with the Cousins play.
All right. No, I agree. Like I said, I think that's where you go. If I guess it'd be crazy, but if let's say Rob Kelly is ruled out, would you consider rostering Chris Thompson, who scored double-digit touchdowns last week, or 2 touchdowns last week, and then or would you even be, because then I would assume Matt Jones would be. Would you consider rostering Matt Jones?
Well, they also have, I think his name's Mac Brown, who ripped off a long touchdown run at the end of the game last week when it was pretty much over. So I think he would play over Matt Jones. I know that sounds crazy. It's funny that you say that because I did look at Chris Thompson and thought that exact same thing, like if Kelly's out. I still don't know if I would do it because my guess is either Jones or Brown, and my guess is it would be Mac Brown, would still get a good early work. So, but it is a good point, Chris Thompson getting more involved in the offense, and he's a really good pass catcher. So DraftKings full point PPR puts him in play from that standpoint.
Yeah, definitely on DK, probably not FanDuel for me.
I agree. I think Chris Thompson on DK is very, very interesting tournament option. But I think that's it. So let's move on to the next matchup. Obviously, we're going to go over. We only have 4 minutes left. There's no way we're going to get to. But the rest of these are 3 o'clock games, so easily late swap and things like that. Some of these guys, but New Orleans versus Atlanta. I think this is probably my favorite matchup of the day. I think most people are going to be on the Green Bay Detroit game tonight because that's the one that has the most implications. Because in this matchup, Atlanta basically there is still something for Atlanta to play for. Atlanta wins, they would lock up the 2 seed. So there's definitely something still for them to play for. Obviously, they want that first round bye, home field. I guess you say the home field implication there. So there's something certainly for them. New Orleans, not so much, but I'm sure they would love to play spoiler. As for the Atlanta's 31.3 to New Orleans 24.8. This is the largest over/under of the slate, and I think there's a ton of fantasy goodness to come from this matchup. For me, Matt Ryan is my favorite quarterback to target this week. I know a lot of people are going to be on the Jordy Nelson stack. For me, it's going to be Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, and I'm going to feel great about it. Julio Jones has missed the last few weeks. Last week he was back. This week there is no snap count for him. He is going to be a full go. So I love Matt Ryan this week. I love Julio Jones. And I wouldn't even be mad at you if you did a Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Devonta Freeman stack because I love Devonta Freeman as well in this matchup. And I don't know. I just love this entire matchup, and I would probably run it back with either Brandon Cooks or Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I don't have enough exposure to this game, and it's the highest over under of the week or point total. It's going to be high scoring. You hit on it from Atlanta's point of view. I do think it's interesting in tournaments with on the Saints side of the ball because, of course, when the Saints are at home, Drew Brees isn't nearly as high owned, but this is in a dome in Atlanta, which helps Brees, helps Cooks. And look, I know there's these narratives every year or these reports that come out every year that Sean Payton's going to be done in New Orleans, but it does seem like there's been a few more reports the last couple of days and the last couple of weeks than usual. That's just the way I've kind of looked at it. So if it does end up being Sean Payton's last game as the coach of the Saints, then I think he would want to go out with a bang. So I do think Brees and GPPs is very interesting because, like you said, Kevin, this is definitely a game that you're going to want some exposure to. I mean, it's probably going to be a bonanza.
It's definitely going to be a bonanza. I don't see how it could be. And with these guys being priced as they are, I think that's going to lead a lot of people off of them. Because I mean, most of these guys that you want to pay for are over 6,500. So you could, if you're gonna play these guys, you're gonna have to play them in a game stack situation, I feel like. So they're gonna eat up a lot of your cap. But I mean, if this game ends up hitting, you're gonna wish that you had players in this matchup. So yeah, I think Cooks is really interesting to me because he's the highest priced receiver for the Saints, and he can be that one guy who really just goes nuts. A lot of people love to play him at home, but I think still playing inside, I think Cooks is able to to get it going here. And then Devonta Freeman has just been amazing at home. He scored like 90% of his touchdowns in home matchups. So if I'm playing anybody from the other side, I will. Yeah, I mean, this is a good game to target for sure. You definitely want to target this, and if you're one of those people who likes to play just the afternoon slate, you well too, and just hit on that. Don't overthink it because that's going to be one of the highest scoring games on the slate.
Yeah, that's a good point because there's been times where, I've spread myself too thin and thought, oh, I got to get exposure in this game, in this game, in this game. In the afternoon slate, if your lineup is half Saints and Falcons, I don't think that's probably inaccurate at all. Like, you're definitely going to want multiple players from this game, especially in the smaller slate. So, yeah, I mean, Michael Thomas, Brandon Cooks, obviously the Falcons guys, Julio that Kev hit on. Yeah, they're all in play.
Who would you rather have, Brandon Cooks or Michael Thomas?
I would probably go Thomas, but I fully understand the Cook. I mean, look, it's in a dome, so Cooks could get off like he's done before, but I just think Thomas has been pretty much their wide receiver one for the majority of the year. He's slowed down lately. He missed a game there with an injury, but that's where I would go if I was only taking one of them.
If it was cash, I'd play Thomas, but in a GPP, I want Cooks. I think Thomas will be more heavily coveted, so I think you could probably get an edge on people by taking Cooks.
And I can see that for sure because he offers 80-yard touchdown upside. Thomas has had multiple 2-touchdown games, so I definitely think he's a really good option in GPPs too. But yeah, I can see that. That's why we're asking the question because this is a tough one. Where would you go, Kevin?
I would probably go in GPPs. I would probably go Michael Thomas. In cash, Brandon Cooks just. I get it, and he's certainly he's probably the better tournament option because obviously I think he has that ability at any time to bust off a 90-yard touchdown, and quite a few times this year, consistent. So, like I said, I mean, I think in tournaments, I think Brandon Cooks is the better option. For me, I would probably go just because I think he has a much higher touchdown upside and things. For me, that's where I would go. Mark Ingram is another guy that I really up going against Atlanta. Atlanta's run defense is terrible. I think Ingram, and then there's that narrative there that it's just short of another to hit an incentive bonus. I think it's 1,000 yards, and I think they really wanted him. The GM came out this week and said they're really going to do whatever they can to get him over 1,000 yards. So I think for that narrative, I think there's something to be said. We all know how upset he got last week or a few weeks ago when he really wanted that touchdown to get that incentive. So I don't know. Maybe they're trying to do him a solid, but I think Mark Ingram is a guy that I've had quite a bit of exposure to so far.
Yeah, that's a great point. I shouldn't have been not touching on the running backs. Yeah, Ingram in this spot is very, very interesting as well. He had a great game last week, and those incentives are there.
Right, and then for the Falcons, I love, like I've already said, I love Devonta Freeman. We talked about this earlier in the week with Devonta Freeman that he's a guy that I really haven't been on all that much this year. So, but yeah, I think he's in an excellent spot. But I've rostered more Tevin Coleman this year than I have Devonta Freeman.
I probably have as well, and I definitely wish I had Freeman in his 3-touchdown game against the 49ers. And just looking at it, yeah, I think this is a Freeman game over a Coleman game. And just overall, in games that have this much fantasy value that we know are going to be high scoring, every single player in those games, their value goes up because the game flow, because it could be a shootout, because we know there's going to be a lot of points scored. So that brings up the value of not only the pass catchers, because that's usually where our minds go, but the running backs as well. And I do think that with Julio Jones coming back, Coleman, who's gotten a lot of his work in the passing game, I know he ripped off a long touchdown last week, but over the course of the entire season, Freeman has been the running back for that team for the most part. He's been the one getting more carries. And so that's where I would look if I was looking at a running back on the Falcons. And just at the end of the day, like we said, everybody in this game is in play.
Absolutely. Yeah. Freeman would be like the nuts guy that I would want in this game. Like I would, if you're game stacking this, I would take the Saints side and then bring it back with Devontae Freeman because he's just so good at home. I mean, his last 7 rushing touchdowns have all come in home games. He's only not scored in 2 home games. It's just like, I don't know what it is about this guy, but when he plays at home, he goes bananas. So that's definitely intriguing to me.
Oh, my bad. Cordell Patterson already a 39-yard catch. That's how week 17 is going to go.
Yeah, I saw that. And I also saw Tom Brady just got lit up.
Really?
Anyway.
Anthony's somewhere cheering.
That's right. But, yeah, I mean, I think we touched on pretty much all the plays in that game.
So let's keep it moving. So the next one we can go to is, well, Kansas City versus San Diego. I mean, speaking of Kansas City, I missed out on the opportunity last week on Tuesday to really say anything to you, Ben. But
I was in hiding.
I believe I called the hammer was going to be dropped upon the Denver Broncos. However, this week, I really want the opposite to happen. I really want Denver to drop the hammer on Oakland, but we'll get to that here in a second. So Kansas City in this matchup does have something to play for. They need to win. So not only, at the very least, lock up the number 5 seed and ensure their ticket to be punched to play Houston, but they also have a shot at the number 2 seed. Kansas City wins and Oakland loses, then Kansas City takes that first round bye, and which would be big for obviously Kansas City, and then getting that home game because if either of you ever had the opportunity to go to Arrowhead, especially for a playoff game, that's something you should do because Arrowhead. Oh
yeah.
Jerick McKinnon touchdown. Anyway,
wow.
Yeah, 16-yard touchdown. So anyway, so the Kansas City San Diego game, we have Travis Kelce who has 6 100-yard receiving games, which is tied for most tight end in a season, matching Tony Gonzalez in 2000 and 2004. So anytime you get to be mentioned in the likes of Tony Gonzalez, you're doing something right. For the Chiefs, I think you feel great about starting Travis Kelce, and I have no idea how Travis Kelce is only $5,000. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I know we've already kind of talked about that earlier, but Travis Kelce is probably the nuts play at tight end again this week, especially at 5K. And then I know some people are going to be on Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, for me, is purely a GPP play. He's been that way all year because he's very boom or bust. He's going to be – his usage is – I mean, he's really been – I mean, he's scored what? I mean, all of his touchdowns have just come just crazy long touchdowns, whether they're on the ground, on the air, or, kickoff return for touchdowns. But for me, I think the top plays, even Alex Smith is somebody no one's really going to be talking about, but I think he's in play this week. And then from there, I love Kansas City's defense. And as I'm sure Ryan will talk about, I am not on Antonio Gates. I want nothing to do with Antonio Gates. You couldn't pay me to roster Antonio Gates this week. So I know there's that narrative of him breaking Tony Gonzalez's touchdown record, all those things, but I want nothing to do with Antonio Gates. And if the Chargers try to force feed the ball to Antonio Gates to get that record, I think Eric Berry has a couple pick sixes today.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with Gates too. He said he's coming back next year, and the matchup's just awful. So I'm not going that route. As far as my Broncos, I'm very disappointed. And the worst part about it is I knew it was going to happen, and I let my heart, get me a team, even though it was. I just knew they were going to lose. They had no running game. They can't stop the run. It was a beatdown. And here's the thing, like you said, the Chiefs to get that 2 seed because I've been in that stadium and that home field advantage is one of the best in the entire NFL. And if they can get that 2 seed, they're going to be playing. So like we've already said, Kelsey at 5 Gs makes absolutely no sense. Go anywhere else in cash games at the tight end position, and even in tournaments, you're definitely going to want exposure. Like you said, he's been a monster all year. You're getting a wide receiver 1 at a $5,000 price tag. That's you're going on the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill is a GPP option, and Spencer Ware has that. I think he needs 79 rushing yards to get a bonus. So if he plays, I'm not really interested in him. He's been banged up all week, but he's just somebody else to consider. Tyreek Hill's been taking some of his carries from him. So, again, Kelsey is the nut spot here, and Burkhead has a touchdown. Let's go.
I couldn't get wild. I want to get wild. I got a ton of Burkhead exposure, so
I just threw him in 3 minutes before lock. So let's go.
Oh, that figures. Tom Savage fumble and touchdown.
Oh no, the Titans.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Titans rolled into the end.
Okay.
Who's Martellus Bennett? Yeah, it's hard to do this now with the one. All right, so let's keep it moving.
With together. Yeah, the only players I would roster are tight ends from that game. Maybe Tyrell Williams. You can talk me into. That's it though.
I like Alex Smith.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it's just throw Kelsey in and go on to the next game.
Yeah, I see what you're saying too with Spencer Ware with the 79 yards. He's away there, but Alex Smith, I just really like Alex Smith. I think he's I think he has QB1 upside this week to provide that sort of numbers for you. And historically over his career, he's played pretty well against San Diego as well.
I like it.
I don't know if you guys had anything else. Did I miss anybody? Nope. All right. So then we also have what's the next one? The Denver-Oakland match. Okay. Oh yeah, Oakland versus Denver matchup. This is the one that I will be paying a ton of attention to at the same time, but that's more of a fan perspective because Oakland certainly has something to play for. If they lose, they'll go down to the 5 seed. Denver has nothing to play for but spoiler, and maybe there's that narrative there now that Gary Kubiak may be retiring after this game due to health problems. So maybe they try to win one for him as his last game. So there's that narrative that just sort of popped up, and not that I wish anything on somebody's health or that should be the reason they should play, but hey, I'll take any sort of narrative for Denver to go out and try to lay the hammer on Oakland this week because as we know, Oakland is going to be without Derek Carr. So they're going to be behind Matt McGloin. And if you believe anything that crazy Bill Romanowski says, he says that we're going to find out why Matt McGloin is a better quarterback than Derek Carr.
I
mean, the Broncos literally had nothing to play for, and now they do because Kubiak's stepping down. So it's interesting because, they won the Super Bowl last year. Now they're out of it and have no motivation at all and thought the Raiders would win. But now they do have motivation, and I think they get up for this game now for the most part because they're going to play for their coach. And it's in Denver, so it's going to be an interesting game. I mean, as far as DFS options, I really am not interested in anybody in this game, though. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Latavius Murray would have been an option, which I know. What do you think of him, Ryan? I know you had him wrote up in your article over on TFA.
Yeah, well, I think that I mean, the people who gone on Denver are huge with T.J. Ward and Derek Wolfe being out. So that's what got me on Latavius to begin with, because that's how you attack them from the get go. Anyway, is on the ground. I still do like Latavius a little bit. I was liking the Raiders defense too, a little bit. I think they could be real sneaky with Paxton Lynch going, just because he's awful. So yeah, it should be interesting. But yeah, I think the Broncos will definitely get up for the Kubiak game, which is something I didn't know about until this morning. But yeah, other than that, like, I'm not really wanting to roster any Broncos offensively. I think you take a shot on maybe one of the Oakland running backs, because they are running out a three-headed monster there. So really, any one of those guys is a viable option, because you really never know who it's going to be going into a given week. And then probably the Raiders defense. Those are the only options I would look for.
But the thing is, the Raiders have gone back to the three-headed committee at running back, which is why I'm not interested in Murray. If I felt better about the volume, then I'd be interested, because again, Denver's run D sucks, and they're out of the playoffs. But we saw Washington rip off a couple long runs. Jalen Richard has looked good, pretty much all year, and they've been getting work the last couple weeks. So that's why I can't go that route.
Well, yeah, I think one thing to consider when you're talking about that is it's a lot easier to run the three-headed back committee when your offense is able to hit on all cylinders and you have Derek Carr there at quarterback. Like, I'm not convinced that Matt McGloin's going to go out there and do much. So, definitely with Washington and Rashad, well, Washington's good on the ground, but with Rashad being involved in the passing game, like, I'm just going to write him off right off the bat. Like, I might not win him. Washington would be the only guy other than Murray that I would target, because Washington can actually get it going on the ground. But they might just, say, hey, like, we need to know that Latavius can carry us throughout the playoffs with Carr not being here for us. So they might just try and feed him the ball multiple times and have him get going and build him up.
I can see that. Steve Smith, 17.8% owned in the Millie Maker, which I like a lot.
Yeah, that's way better than what I thought it was going to be. So you guys are right. The betting public was not paying that far much attention. Or maybe a lot of people had the same mindset as me, which opened up value anyway. So I do have some value there. And I did see, if you didn't notice, Dorial Green-Beckham just went back to the locker room, so with an injury.
Oh, man. Burke had 7.5% owned, which is pretty nice.
That's real nice there.
And Ertz is going off early too, by the way.
Who scored a touchdown in the Cleveland game?
That I don't know.
Oh, I did not see that come across.
The Valve.
The Valve.
I mean, we knew it coming in. Like, week 17 is just get your popcorn ready and enjoy.
Real.
Winning lineup for today is going to be.
A-Rob already one catch for 42 yards. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a good game for sure.
All right. So, do we have any other? Oh, see, okay. We still have quite a bit. All right. So, Seattle versus San Francisco.
So, the report came out that Chip Kelly's getting fired, right? So, I don't think San Francisco has any motivation at all. They got Vance McDonald on IR. Torrey Smith's not playing. Carlos Hyde's on IR. Colin Kaepernick sucks. Seattle has to win this game. They're fighting for that number 2 seed in a first-round bye with the Falcons. So, they've got to get the W. And I really like Seattle's defense. I know they're, I think, one of the most expensive options, but I like it because they're motivated, and not only do the 49ers suck, but they have no motivation at all. And love me some Doug Baldwin in this game. He should feast. Jimmy Graham gets a boost because Tyler Lockett's out with the injury. So Graham's an interesting contrarian play at tight end because everybody's on Kelsey and Ertz and some of these other options. And then Rawls is interesting to me, but the thing that scares me is Alex Collins. I know he was banged up last week in the second half, but Alex Collins came in and like immediately looked better than Rawls had for an entire month since that Panthers game. So I'm not sure if I knew Rawls was going to get the majority of the work, I'd be really interested. But I'm fearful that it's going to be like a timeshare. And so that's why I haven't been as big on Rawls. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to roster Rawls this week. I think that Collins really, is able to get some looks it being week 17. So when you're talking about saving on the price tag there, like I'd much rather just pay for Collins. Love Seattle this week. Like I don't care. I mean, Chip Kelly it being this last game, they're not motivated. That just makes me like Seattle even more because Pete Carroll's just gonna have his guys go out there and embarrass them. It's a rivalry between Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly that goes back to when they were college coaches. Like they just don't like each other. So I just think Seattle's able to roll. I think that you can take any pass catcher on the Seattle side. Want to take Russell Wilson, I would say you try and stack with two. But one of the guys that obviously Doug Baldwin's a no-brainer. If you're playing the afternoon slate, you just plug the dude in because his floor and upside is just way higher than anybody else at the wide receiver position on that slate. I think like even than Julio's right now with him being banged up. But Jermaine Kearse could be somebody who really comes on here with the Tyler Lockett injury. We saw him get targeted 9 times last week, which was tied for his season high on the year. He caught a touchdown for the first time last week. So he definitely is one of the receivers on the team that has that rapport with Wilson, and Wilson loves targeting this guy on the outside a lot. So sneaky option there to get you a touchdown at least, and then if he's able to catch some of his other catches, he might be able to put up some yardage as well too. Anybody from San Fran, just to be clear?
Absolutely not.
I have some. Sean Drawn gives me in GPPs is a guy that I've sort of, and especially on DraftKings at 3,200, is a guy that I've sort of taken a peek at because just who are they going to get the ball to? If
Seahawks.
I don't feel. What's that?
You said who are they going to get the ball to? I said the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean,
pretty much.
No denying that. So. But other than that, there's really nothing that I would want to take a look at. So let's just move on because I don't think there's really much else to talk about in that matchup. So let's talk about Arizona versus the Rams. Certainly there's David Johnson. That guy is just a beast. There's pretty much nothing else you can say about him. I'm still shocked that Arizona is running him out there. I don't know why. It makes absolutely zero sense for them to even play him this week. He is their future, and to even run him out there makes no sense. But, hey, DFS-wise, I don't care. I think they're going to try to get him that 150 – what is it? I think he's 153 or 157 yards short in the receiving game. He gets that. He is the first player since Eric Dickerson to have 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards. So I think there's that. And then I think J.J. Nelson is also very interesting at 4,600. But who in this matchup, Kenny Britt is out this week as well. So that's also something to talk about on the Los Angeles side of the ball. But who are you guys targeting?
Yeah, with Britt out, we know Jared Goff sucks right now, at least. So with Britt out, who is his best option in the passing game by far, I think, that makes Cardinals D extremely interesting. And yeah, I mean, you talked about it. We brought it up last week on the pod. I was concerned about David Johnson's workload last week because the Cardinals were eliminated from the playoffs. And he still went ham. He still had a ton of touches and scored 3 touchdowns. And so I don't know what would be different from last week to this week, seeing as how they used him last week with them out of the playoffs. I know they were playing Seattle, so maybe there was a little motivation to get a W against them. But, I mean, I just think he's going to continue to get the majority of the work. And like you said, I think they are motivated to help him get some of these milestones, especially the having 100 yards total in all 16 games. So love me David Johnson again. Great matchup. Rams, not very good. Don't have anything to play for. And like you said, I mean, I think you touched on all of it, Kevin. I think J.J. Nelson's the other interesting guy at that cheap salary. Larry Fitzgerald has pretty much fallen off the map. Michael Floyd not on the team. He's, I believe, scored a touchdown in 4 straight, and we know he has the home run potential. And, you know, in Week 17, where some of these defenses some of these cornerbacks, these secondaries might be checked out, you know, these fast guys might have a little bit more of an advantage if the defenders aren't trying as much. So, you know, I could see Nelson getting deep for another long one. So those are the 3 guys on Arizona I'm interested in, and I would not touch any Ram with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, yeah. I'm really nervous for David Johnson. It's not funny, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, if they were in the playoff race, this dude wouldn't be playing. I think you have to somewhat, you know, be so close to the records and everything like that. But if something were to happen to this dude in this game, like Arians could get fired, right? Like, I think it's a fireable offense, I think, considering how the season's gone. And then if you lose David Johnson, like at the end of the year, like that's just icing on the cake for fire. But, you know, hope he does well. Hope he's able to, you know, get it going and get the yards, and just, you know, hopefully he gets it early so that he can just check out of the game, and then they don't have to worry about anything else later. Maybe he gets it by halftime. With the guy who interests me a lot is Tavon Austin. I could see myself playing him in this afternoon early slate. Like, where's the ball going to go? And, you know, I talked about it earlier with some of these guys having audition games in Week 17. Like, they're going to want to see what Goff can do. And obviously, like, they just gave Tavon Austin this huge contract. Like, they got to see that these 2 guys can, you know, and be able to get it going. So I could see them, you know, going out there and playing catch a couple times and you know, padding up Tavon Austin's stats, because we know he's a short field receiver. So Kings, where you're getting 1 point for those receptions, this guy could end with, you know, 6, 7, 8 receptions easily, and that 8-point floor there is pretty nice. You know, tack on some yardage there. Like, yeah, he might not get into the end zone, but if he's seeing some volume here, that could boost him.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't understand the why in the world they feel the need to run out David Johnson. It just seems like bad coaching, I mean, like I said, he is their franchise. Like, I would really be afraid to know how many wins they would have without David Johnson. David Johnson is a historical type season with what he's been able to do this year. I mean, he really does look like the second coming of LaDainian Tomlinson, is really who he reminds me of. I don't know why you'd think they would want to protect their investment and not run him out there, but they're not. So for me, I'm going to have a ton of David Johnson, just like I do every week, because you're insane not to. Every week that you think that he made, like the Vikings week that he played when they played the Vikings a few weeks ago, a lot of people were afraid of that, and kind of people were off him a little, and he just went out and went ham. I want no business of not having exposure to David Johnson. I will always – so I have a ton of exposure to him. J.J. Nelson is another guy that I really do He's getting the targets. And then on the other side of the football, I actually sort of like Brian Quick. And I know I feel probably a little crazy saying that, but with no Kenny Britt, I know the Tavon Austin call is a guy who I think a lot of people are going to be on as well, especially in those afternoon-only slates. But I like Brian Quick. Brian Quick, especially earlier in the year, was a guy who really sort of was playing well, put up some good weeks, and then has sort of fallen off as the Rams have fallen off because the Rams are absolutely atrocious this year. But I think that this could be one of those crazy weeks where Brian Quick actually has a good week. No Kenny Britt opens up tons of a decent amount of targets. And I think Brian Quick could see 5 to 8 targets this week, and he's a guy who could take one to the house. So other than that, that's probably the only options that I'll be targeting outside of the Arizona defense. And I think Arizona's defense is one of the top defenses that I'll be playing as well. So other than that, I think that's really all I got out of this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said on the Cardinals side of the ball.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the matchup of the night, the Green Bay versus Detroit. This one, I have found myself – I do have some exposure to this matchup, but I have found myself fading this matchup more than I've been stacking it. This could easily be a game where it's much more low scoring than what we're expecting. This is a game that, especially if wins, and they're going to go into this knowing that this is a must-win, sudden death playoff type of game. And regardless, and even if Washington were to lose today, this is still for the division. And for that home field, the first round home game. So I think this could be a matchup where it's a little bit more low scoring than what we're expecting. We do know that Green Bay, their defense has really struggled all year. They have a ton of injuries. Detroit has been a better defense. Darius Slay, I believe, is expected to return. However, as we know, Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson is going to be the stack of the day. And that's where everybody's going to go to. Aaron Rodgers has been a monster, especially I think I saw over the last 10 weeks, he's thrown 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and has outscored the next closest quarterback by 50 fantasy points. I mean, the dude's just been a monster. He's scored multiple touchdowns, I think, in 9 of his last 10 as well. So I know that's where everybody's going to be on, and for me, that's why I've been going more towards the Matt Ryan stack.
I mean, it's probably going to – we thought Steve Smith was going to be about 30% owned. That's where I think Rodgers and Jordy will be. And so, like we've already said, it makes sense off that stack or just get it off that completely to get leverage and play other spots. And we've talked about some of those. Do really like Rodgers a lot this week still. He's just going to mash. They have to win the game to make the playoffs and to win that division. I think they do it. He's just been killing it lately. I believe Darius Slay is coming back, which does hurt Jordy a little bit, but he's just been so money. I really haven't had as much of him as I wish I would, but especially of late. But he's been killing it. I just think they both have really good games. So in cash, they're so solid. Again, there's cases to be made on both sides of it for tourneys, but I definitely think you can go that route. I have a Rodgers Jordy stack. If you want to differentiate, you definitely can go Rodgers Devontae Adams because Adams is cheaper, and I see him having a good game as well. I know that's Ryan's dude. And on the other side of the ball, I love me some Golden Tate because the Lions are at home. They have to win too to win this division, and even though I think the Packers win, the Lions are going to have a good game too. They're going to fight, and Golden Tate's the number one dude in this offense. There's no Theo Riddick again, which helps Golden Tate. He had seen double-digit targets, and I believe it was 3 games in a row prior to last week, and then Ebron had the 12 targets last week. I think Golden Tate gets back to seeing double-digit targets. I think he has a good game. The Packers' pass defense has been bad all year. And I like Ebron as a cheap tight end option as well. But if I'm picking between the two, I want Tate and then Rodgers, Nelson, Adams. They're all very interesting to me. Ty Montgomery is interesting too, but I just think the game where he went insane, it was in freezing cold weather in Chicago, and this game's going to be in a dome. It's going to be ideal weather conditions for Aaron Rodgers to just sling it around like he's been doing almost the entire season, and that's what I think happens again. So I'm looking at the passing offense for the Packers, as is everybody, and I like Tate a lot and interested in Ebron as well.
So pretty much anybody in this game you're interested in.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this is a good game, and I know Kevin's fading it a little bit, but I'm still very interested in it, as you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see Kevin's side of it for sure because
definitely.
These opponents know each other, but from a football fan standpoint, I think this game is just nuts. Like, I'm so excited for this game, and I'm a Bears fan. Like, the fact that Detroit's even playing for the division is incredible to me, considering how the season's gone for them, considering Calvin Johnson left, just all of those factored in. It's a great game to watch from a football perspective. Now, for fantasy, I think there are a lot of good options to take. I think that this game probably somewhere around 27-24-ish range. Like, I think there's going to be 3 touchdowns scored by either team. So definitely fantasy goodness to be had. Love Davante Adams. Obviously, I always love Davante Adams. I think that he's the pivot play that you want off of Jordy Nelson if you're going to take a Packers pass catcher. And then another guy who I would be interested in is Jared Cook, just because of how advantageous this Lions defense has been to take advantage of with the tight ends. So Jared Cook is somebody who's definitely in play for me, and who I don't see, if you played him on the all-day slate, like, good for you, because I think that this dude's ownership is going to be under 1%. Like, I really do. And given his price, like, he can obviously hit. So if you're going to be playing in later matchups, I say, go for Jared Cook for the exposure to that game. And on the other side of the ball, it's pretty much Tate or, I guess, Stafford for me. I just think Tate's in an incredible spot. I don't see how he doesn't see double-digit targets in this game. And the dude catches pretty much everything that's thrown his way. So without Theo Riddick being out, it's totally boosted his upside in every game that he's been in. In games where they're underdogs, he's seen 2 more receptions per game on average. So he's pretty much the guy that you would want in any type of stack that you're doing involving this game.
I like the Cook call. I was trying to get him in lineups earlier. You've been on it all year, Ryan. I mean, the Lions can't cover the tight end position. We know this. And if we know Rodgers is going to ball out, Cook could definitely be that GPP option. So he is interesting. He'll be somebody I'm looking at in these later slates.
Yeah, and I think for me, somebody that I'm going to want, and I know a lot of people aren't going to be on him because he really hasn't been good, and that's Matt Stafford. I mean, Matt Stafford, Kyle Rudolph touchdown.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Kev, is like, if you like Matt Stafford, then you really need to be game stacking this,
Well, if I did,
like when we're talking.
Well, so if I'm going somewhere, so for me, it would be Stafford, and then I would go Golden Tate, Eric Ebron, and then I would run it back with probably Davante Adams, because I think that's more of the contrarian, leverage plays off of, because I think most people are going to be on the Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, and then probably run it back with Golden Tate. I think that's really where a lot of people are going to go, and I think as in tournaments, I think Stafford, like I said, but Stafford's been horrible since he hurt his finger. I think he's like a 0 touchdown, 4 interceptions is what he's been putting up. Hasn't been good. Nobody's going to be on him. Everybody's going to be fading Matt Stafford. But I think this is just a matchup where maybe he could just, where he can put it all together. It's at home in Detroit. It's not in Green Bay. It's in a dome. And I think people are going to be completely off Matt Stafford, and I think that could be a big mistake. If you looked at the last time they played, Aaron Rodgers had a big game, threw 4 touchdowns, but he only had 200 yards passing. A lot of that was because in the beginning of the game, Matt Stafford threw a couple interceptions near the goal line and really flipped the field, and Green Bay got up really quickly. And that's really where most of their yards came from. But Matt Stafford threw for 380 yards. So I think 2 or 3 touchdowns, I know for sure. But so I like Stafford, and I think people are going to be really off him. Nobody's going to be on him. Everybody's going to be going to Aaron Rodgers, and I understand that. And I will definitely have some Aaron Rodgers exposure because you're an idiot not to. But I just like Matt Stafford as a sneaky GPP option.
Yeah, I love that. I wrote up Stafford. The matchup's great. He's at home. So, yeah, I mean, very, very interested in this game. I think this is the second best fantasy game of the day behind the Saints-Falcons. And so you obviously want players from this game. And that, what you brought up was extremely GPP by going the Stafford route, being at home, knowing everybody's going to have Rodgers, getting Golden Tate and Ebron, who I like, and then, playing it back with Nelson or Adams, who's more GPP. So, I love it because I'm big on targeting, the best fantasy games where the games that I think are just going to be really high scoring. And this is up there with the Saints Falcons. And so, I do like that. I like the Stafford side of it as well, even though he's got the finger injury.
Then,
McCoy is out for the rest of the game.
Yep.
I am lucky that I think I have very, very minimal exposure to LaShawn McCoy.
And Kyle Rudolph scored, so he's already at 13 point something.
I cannot believe Michael Floyd has a touchdown, but that's just so week 17.
It's week 17, man. You got to embrace the madness.
Call me insane too, but I actually have some Marvin Jones exposure. So,
wow,
yeah.
And the Steve Smith narrative is not off to a good start. So Kevin's about to. Can I have some of your money today, Kevin?
I didn't want to throw that out there yet. I was going to wait till Tuesday, but so far it's looking pretty damn good for the fade.
No, I got to
Steve
say
Smith.
something. Yeah.
Well, Baltimore's just going to throw now, so we're good.
I was there. So we'll see.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I guess that's pretty much the slate. Took us see what happens when Anthony's not here. We go for what? It's 12:44. We're still going here. So
yeah, nice little hour 45.
It's good though. It's good. We got to talk through all the slates, and so this is going to help us out for Tuesday our podcast this week because it's all, of course, it's going to be all DFS, and we're going to go through each and every slate or each and every matchup and really dive deeper into the matchups and really take a look at everything for the wild card week of the playoffs. So I think this was a good exercise for us to really kind of get our feet wet with what we're going to be doing here for the next month.
Yeah, definitely. And I love DFS for the playoffs. I love picking the winners for the playoffs. It's a smaller slate, so we can dive more into specific matchups and really analyze it on a deeper level. And I cannot wait for that. And this was awesome today too. So hopefully somebody out there or one of us takes that a GPP and gets the momentum headed into the playoffs. And Happy New Year to everybody as well.
Absolutely. 2017, baby. Big year.
Going to be a good year.
It is. Somebody just needs to take down a GPP, and I'll feel good about it.
Yes, let's go. Let's go, Rex. Go
All right.
ahead.
Well, and Tony Romo's in the game, so that's that. There's that. So,
and apparently went deep on the first play. I don't think he connected, but I like that play call.
Yep. All right. Well, let's. Well, I guess we'll see you all on Tuesday.